Okay, you're gonna have to hear me out on this one. I know we do quite a bit of silly theories on this channel, but this one will probably sound like the silliest one to date. Despite its astronomical levels of absurdity, there's actually quite a bit of hard evidence that suggests that the lovable nanny Mary Poppins is actually directly correlated to the terrifying killer clown from the It novel and movies, Pennywise.
We'll float down here.
Yes, get your laughs out now, because you won't be laughing once I explain this one. Look, I'm aware that these two characters would typically never be compared, but they're actually a heck of a lot closer than you may think. Let's start by examining the timeline by which they operate. Both have a tendency to come and go, often staying gone for years on end.
Bill, it's back.
To be exact, the film Mary Poppins Returns, starring Emily Blunt, takes place 25 years after the events of the original, marking 2.5 decades before her triumphant return to 17 Cherry Hill Lane. Conversely, in It, Pennywise leaves for 27 years, just slightly longer, before returning to torment the fictional town of Derry, Maine once again. Okay, so not exactly the same amount of time, but pretty darn close. Plus, they both come back to regenerate energy from a brand new group of young children. That's sort of like their life source in a way. Although one survives off of joy and the other survives off of fear. I'll leave it up to you to connect the dots on which one's which. Perhaps joy is slightly more valuable, like putting premium gas in the gas tank as opposed to the ordinary stuff. By the way, does that stuff really make a difference? Like what is the difference? Is there pulp in the ordinary stuff? I don't know. Anyway, it stands to reason that both Pennywise and Mary Poppins live off of the energy they get from children, just on opposite ends of the spectrum. I call it the Monsters, Inc. theory. If you'll recall, the main plot of that movie was about scary monsters using children for energy, only it took the entire film for them to figure out that laughter was actually more valuable than screams. Could Pennywise and Mary Poppins both belong to the Monsters, Inc. universe? I think that's another video for another time, but they absolutely use the same method to harvest their powers. They also have a tendency to return to the very same kids that they originally visited. Mary Poppins returns to the Banks kids as an adult, whereas Pennywise comes back to torment the Losers Club, who have since grown up. What's fascinating is that in both versions, the grown-up kids completely forget their experiences with these supernatural beings. I mean, that's a bit odd, no? Would you forget a nanny like Mary Poppins who had such an impact on your childhood? You definitely wouldn't forget the nightmarish killer clown that tried to haunt you. I feel like that one would stick with a person. Both groups eventually do remember once their respective visitor shows up and begins reminding them. Speaking of them coming back, it's also worth noting their paralleled origins. Mary Poppins comes from the skies above, whereas Pennywise comes from the sewers below. The symbolism isn't lost on me either. After all, we all know what's supposed to be up there, and on the other hand, what's apparently down there. You don't have to be a religious buff to know the etymology of the old heaven and hell dynamic. It should be noted, however, that not all good things come from above and not all bad things come from below. The aliens that invaded New York in the Avengers movie came from the sky. Meanwhile, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles live in the sewers beneath the city. I wonder if Michelangelo or Donatello ever ran into Pennywise down there.
We are so Ninja Turtles right now.
We kind of are.
Another interesting similarity between the two characters is their tactics. They're both really big into luring. I haven't done much luring of anything or anyone personally, but these two love to lure.
It makes no sense to take a bath this early.
Wait! I want to take a bath.
And it's not just that, they both lure children named Georgie away from their siblings.
You need to be more careful when the wind rises, Georgie. You nearly lost your kite. And you too nearly lost your Georgie.
I don't know what it is about that specific name, but there must be something extra enticing about kids named Georgie.
Hiya, Georgie.
Both occasions happen in pretty turbulent and rough weather conditions as well. Furthermore, they both lure children named Georgie away from their siblings in bad weather conditions by using the kid's paper toy. Mary Poppins uses Georgie's kite, while Pennywise uses Georgie's boat. I mean, they're mirror images of one another, people. The exact same thing happens in both movies, only one makes you scared and the other makes you feel good. If I'm being honest, I'm usually feeling both of those emotions anyways. Meanwhile, the parents in both situations are completely oblivious to the situations that their children are experiencing. There's all this wild and absurd paranormal stuff going on, and the parents are just blind to it. In a way, both films are a chilling statement on the state of modern parenting. Or not. Yeah, probably not. But seriously, shouldn't they be a little more concerned about the whereabouts of their children and the fantastical entities that seem to have taken a liking to them? Maybe that's just me. Another similarity between Pennywise and Mary Poppins is the fact that they both have the power to use what's in a child's mind. Pennywise gets into their mind and learns their fears to use against them. On the flip side, Mary Poppins uses their imagination to capture their minds. Poppins uses the kids' imaginations to take them into a wonderful, colorful world of wild animated friends, while Pennywise uses their fears to tap into their worst nightmares. In a way, they're both kind of magic, right? Like, both examples are really bordering on the cusp of mind control. They pretty much alter people's thoughts and memories. For all we know, Mary Poppins is just a really nice and caring witch. Her tactics have witchcraft written all over them. Sure, she's friendly, but she also gives off some serious witchcraft vibes. For crying out loud, she flies around using her umbrella. Do you know what witches fly around on? Brooms. Do you know what umbrellas and brooms have in common? I don't own either. Perhaps my favorite similarity between the pair is the fact that they both love to sing and dance, and they know how to use their abilities as natural entertainers to their advantage. The lovable nanny performs a bevy of musical numbers throughout her movies. Meanwhile, Pennywise literally refers to himself as Pennywise the Dancing Clown.
Well, I'm Pennywise the Dancing Clown.
He dances for Beverly in Chapter 1 and sings for Richie in Chapter 2, showing off both aspects of his strangely human talents. Above all of these reasons and explanations, the most foolproof evidence of this correlation is the floating. Yep, I said the floating. Spoiler alert, but at the end of Mary Poppins Returns, all the characters go floating off holding onto balloons. You know who else loves to float and who's strangely obsessed with balloons? You guessed it, it's Barack Obama. Bet you didn't know that fun fact. Oh, also, Pennywise. And what color balloon does Mary pick up to float off with? A nice, shiny red one.
I think it must be yours.
Yes, I suppose it must.
I'll take this opportunity to remind you that Pennywise's trademark symbol is the floating red balloon. In fact, the infamous quote from the movie and from Stephen King's novel by the same name is, quote, "You'll float too." So there's clearly more than enough evidence to link these two together, but what's the relation? One way of looking at it is that they're the same species. Whatever the heck that may be, or whatever you want to call it, they're both it. Hey, see what I accidentally did there? There's also the possibility that we touched on before, that Mary Poppins is a witch, and they're both just poltergeist kind of scary creatures with similar tactics and powers. It's also possible that they're just related, like cousins or something. That would explain the similarities. Personally, I think they're actually one and the same. Not the same species or family or any of that, but actually the same person. Mary Poppins is actually Pennywise's origin story. Or better yet, it makes even more sense if Pennywise is actually Mary Poppins' origin story. Think about it. If these characters follow the Monsters, Inc. rule, then the realization that laughter is worth more and provides greater energy than fear does would totally explain the shift in character. Going from a terrible, scary demon clown that feeds off of the fear of children to a loving and caring nanny that feeds off of the joy of children would probably take some sort of drastic realization. And that's what this is. It's straight up just an efficiency thing. Joy is just a more valuable commodity. Sully and Mike figured it out, so did Pennywise, who made the realization and decided to switch it up for their own benefit. Well, what do you think? Is there any validity to this theory? Or do you have a rebuttal that discredits the whole thing? Sound off in the comments down below and let's see who's right. Before you go, make sure to smash that thumbs up button with all your might. Just don't break your screen. Also, make sure that you're subscribed to ScreenRant so you can stay up to date on all the awesome videos that we have coming your way. Until next time,
See you in your dreams. Oh, come back anytime. Bring your friends.